Greetings everyone, this is Vakar Corby from TFT Perspective, and today we are going to discuss growing India-Afghan relations, how Indian Ministry of External Affairs and Global Boys are now focused on Afghanistan and somehow disregarding the human rights and the women rights, and also not allowing Taliban to open the embassy in Delhi. How come this relationship is growing? Is it for, let's say, as per the Chanakya's policy of enemy of my enemy is my friend, or something more than that? Now, before we get into the discourse, I would just like to show a picture of a helicopter that is in August 2021. This is basically, and as reported by Indian media, amid the Taliban blitz in capturing Afghanistan, the fighters claim that they have gained control of attack helicopter that was gifted to by India. The Taliban claimed that it had taken control of an Mi-24 attack helicopter donated by India to the Afghanistan forces. Now, this is, I think, very significant. And I'll just run through the past 2 decades how Indian military, Indian political establishment, and research analysis wing actually aided all the anti-Taliban forces in those past 2 decades. Whether it was initial American getting foothold, there was a lot of clapping in Delhi, mind you, followed by Hamid Karzai's government. And incidentally, JP Singh also met Hamid Karzai in the recent meet at Kabul, also when Taliban displayed very proudly that Mullah Mujahid was basically meeting, or the acting defense minister, JP Singh. I just want to remind the Taliban and the Indians how much bad blood existed in the past and what India was doing, what Indian media was doing. And have Taliban sold the blood of thousands of young Taliban fighters who fought for Afghanistan and who were massacred by ammunition, weapon systems, vehicle, and helicopter provided by the Indian establishment. So I think that is very, very significant. Now, if you look at time between uh, the American intervention or occupation of Afghanistan and till 2010, you find a plethora of information in the Indian media how Taliban were viewed. So that's very important. How they viewed Taliban. They viewed them as uncouth, basically illiterate or Jahil, and who were hell bent in bringing Islamic rule and the legacy of Hindu Kush mountains. Now, there was also an attack on Indian embassy in July 2008 and October 2009. There were two attacks. And India said that we'll be biggest losers if Talibanization grips Afghanistan. And this was said by Brajesh Mishra, the ex-national security advisor. And he was national security advisor in the 90s. Similarly, if you look at Cape Subramaniam, at that time he wrote, the war in Afghanistan is crucial from the point of view of Indian national security. If the Americans withdraw and jihadis emerge with the sense of triumphalism, India will face increasing onslaught of terrorism. So I think that was the thought process. And it did remain so far. Look at the Indian media, the caricatures drawn for the Taliban, although now we found Palki Sharma, speaking from Washington about the niceties and meetings. But let's not, I think, forget about the past. There were also culture onslaught against Taliban. Look at Bollywood were very popular in Kabul, in Kandahar, as well as in the north, and it had really entered, and they used to make fun of Taliban. Now we look at one of the statements written by C. Rajamohan, again one of their top strategists. Instead of debating whether we should send troops to Afghanistan, Delhi should look at a range of other ways it can help Kabul and Washington make the Afghan National Army a credible and effective fighting force, because they feared that if they send their troops, they'll get a lot of beaten from the Taliban. The best contribution that India could make might be in the areas of combat training and creating capacities in logistics and communications. India could also perhaps help the Afghan in rebuilding their air force. Just imagine how much venom or vendetta was there in the Indian policymakers when Taliban were actually fighting for liberation. Who was helping them? Who was, let's say, with the side of Taliban? It's very, very strange that when you are fighting for freedom, despite that you a lot of sacrifices, definitely Pakistan had provided the moral support. They also needed that we should be engaged with the Taliban. And all told, when you come into power, just for a few dollars, then you start following the chunkiest policy. And I don't know where is Islam in this. Mushrik, let's say government of India is now very dear, and they always talk of Islam. And also, if you look at talk of trade through Chabahar being, because this was again shut down. Now let's see how much time Trump is going to allow this trade. And Trump has also claimed that he is going to probably ask Taliban to return those $7 billion worth of arsenals left. And maybe India is now trying to fill up the gap. So it's quite a hypocritic, I think, policy. There's also, I think, India did talk of a civil war when the American drawdown had started, taking place in the early 20, let's say 2020 and 21, and they were really fearing that there will be civil war and it will hurt the Indian, basically, let's say, interest. There's also, I think, a case of recognition of Taliban government. In case India is so dear and near, and there are culture and historic, relations, despite providing, weapon systems, military vehicles, gunship helicopters, and also training, because we look at training of Afghan military personnel in the Indian Military Academy or police officers and soldiers, I think it runs into a couple of hundreds. And this was a regular feature, and I think now again they are offering. So just look at the hypocrisy that when there were, let's say, Taliban fighting for freedom, India was, basically not only working against them through diplomatic and economic means, strengthening the hands of Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani, mainly basically because Pakistan was then supporting Taliban. And now, when there is a misunderstanding because of terrorism in Pakistan and all leads going to Kabul, and Pakistan just asking them as brothers that they should review the policy and stop it. Uh, India now again jumps in, offers few dollars, and then gets away with it. So, in nutshell, I think I would say, in a short comment, that Indian policy in Afghanistan is not for favor of any Afghan. Basically, it's born out of Chankia's thousands of years of old mentality or philosophy. Although Pakistan and Afghanistan are not enemies, we are definitely brothers. But probably there is a perception in India that enemy of my enemy is my friend, irrespective of who sits in Kabul. So this was, I think, just to remind the Taliban and the Indian polity what was the past, and are Taliban going to sell the blood of all those youth, young Taliban who were massacred by weapon systems, soldiers trained in Hamid Karzai and Ashraf Ghani's time, or dollar is more important? Thank you very much.